Hello, everyone. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some very simple but truly powerful learning techniques, which can truly enhance the efficacy of our learning and also help us retain things that we're learning much longer. First thing is, when we look at a book or any kind of learning program, our brain is very good at handling structured information. So as an example, if I take a big chapter from any book and I remove all the headings, subheadings, you just see one long, almost like an essay, which is say 10,000 words long. If you have to read that unstructured piece of information, it's going to be extremely hard to absorb that. So my first recommendation is that when you try to read a book or go through any learning program, just look at the structure. So which are the chapters, sub-chapters, topics, and just spend some time reading the headings of each of the chapters and topics and subtopics. So when you have that structure, when you go in looking for something, you know what to expect. And when we know what to expect, it becomes much easier to understand and absorb. So that's number one, which is get the structure before you dive deep into it. Second problem which we face in learning is that very often we are trying to read something, but we're finding it very boring. We're not fully engaged. Even when you're reading, we're not really absorbing. When we try to read something or try to learn something, our brain has to be hungry for the information. Then it'll absorb. So how do you make our brain hungry? Very simple, by asking questions. Curiosity is one of the most powerful human, not just abilities, I would say it's a human trait. We are inherently very, very curious. Number three, which is now the most important one, which is, and this technique is what I call taking notes using active recall. Okay, so let's say you read for 5-7 minutes. So if you're watching a video, view it for 5-7-10 minutes, and after you have read for 5-10 minutes or watched a video, pause. Don't look at the study material or learning material, and then from your understanding, try to summarize the key points. And when you try to do that, you'll very often find that you're blanking out. It is intentional, because I would rather you blank out now than after 15 days say that, oh, you know what, my memory is poor. No, your memory is not poor. We have just not really been able to absorb this. So when we try to take notes by trying to recall actively, that's why you call it taking notes using active recall. Try to remember, what did I just learn? And in that process, if you don't understand, go and read it again. Then without looking at the material, once again try to write the notes down until you're able to reproduce, not the whole thing, just the key points. These notes are primarily to enhance your learning. These are not necessarily for future reference. So if you're scribbling, you can scribble and throw it away, doesn't matter. Technique number 3. Now technique number 4, which is what is called Feynman Technique. Richard Feynman was a very famous physicist, and he was a very good teacher. So this technique is named after him, and the idea is pretty straightforward, which is learn by teaching. After every half an hour, 1 hour after a topic, you can do this. Stop now. Now imagine that you are teaching it to a person who is a novice or who does not know the topic. Whatever I just learned in the last 1 hour, let me try to explain to someone. You don't have to vocalize it. You don't have to open your mouth and speak loudly. You could if you want to, but not required. But in your mind, vocalize it. So think about, okay, I'm teaching a person, I'm explaining the topic, and make sure that you're able to explain in such a manner that a lay person or a novice will be able to understand. 2 other simple ideas. These are subsidiary ideas. One is what is called interleaving. Second is spacing. Interleaving is learning one topic for the whole day versus mixing 3 or 4 subjects or topics. Which is better? Mixing is better. Right? So if you're learning physics, chemistry, maths, after you've done physics for 2 hours, switch to maths. After some time, switch to chemistry. If you read physics for next 12 hours, after some time, your brain will stop absorbing. Lastly, spacing. Spacing is this, which is, if you have 6 hours to learn a topic, should I spend now from, let's say, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. to do that? Or should I do 1 hour each over the next 6 days? So here's the choice. 6 hours on one day or 1 hour on 6 days, which is better? The answer is 1 hour on 6 days is better. Space your learning. It's got a couple of 2 advantages primarily. One is every time you start learning. So I did this 1 hour session today. Tomorrow when I start the 1 hour session, it is forcing my brain to recap what did I learn last time. So it's enforcing some kind of revision or a sort of some renewal of my memory. It refreshes my memory, and therefore it makes the learning much more efficient. So these are the techniques. Just to recap, first we said the four major techniques I talked about, one was get a structure of the study material because brain can handle structured information much better, number one. Number two is create curiosity. Try to, if there are questions, read the questions once. If there are no questions, in your mind, just ask some questions and try to become curious about what you're learning. Number two. Number three, and this is the really important one, which is taking notes using active recall. Number four, Feynman technique, which means try to teach somebody, imaginary person, and therefore in that process, solidify your understanding. And then we talked about two small ideas: interleaving, which is if you have multiple things, don't read one thing for a very long duration, mix different subjects, and then spacing, which is instead of doing one long marathon session, do small sessions over multiple days. Of all these things, if you had to pick just one thing, just one, from my side, that is, take notes using active recall. If nothing else, start from there. If you can pick two, combine that with Feynman technique. Do the best you can, stay consistent, and enjoy the learning. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.